Let's hear what Charlie Kirk has to say about the Second Amendment.
Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. Wow. And that is part of liberty. Wow. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. Wow. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. Wow. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, yes, by having more armed guards in front of schools.
There's no better representation that we are devolving as a society than seeing reactionary arguments get dumber and dumber over the course of the years that I've been alive and have been an active political commentator online. This is the most easily dismissible argument. The most effective counter to it is, okay, let's regulate guns in the same way that we regulate vehicles. Driver's licenses are required for all vehicles. They have greatly reduced vehicular accidents. Let's do that for guns. He would never agree to that. That's number one. Number two, transportation with vehicles serves a profoundly important purpose. Guns do not carry that level of importance. They do not, no matter which way you cut it. You can't light your cigarette with a gun, even though Charlie Kirk should try and do that, in my opinion. You can't ride your gun to work, even though, a lot of these people, these homosexuals, love riding their guns. Okay? They should just try and do it. Light your cigarette with a gun. Have fun. See where that takes you. If you love guns so much, light your cigarette with a gun. Test it out. Must carry insurance. All cars, guns need to be registered in a national database and re-registered every year. Yeah. None of these things qualify because they utilize the Second Amendment. Also, in many of these mass shootings, there are armed security guards. There are armed police officers. There are armed security guards. At Uvalde, cops were on scene immediately. And even in the case of the Covenant School shooting, cops arrived on scene. It took 14 minutes. They went in immediately. And unlike the Uvalde sacks of shit, they actually did what they were supposed to. They rushed the shooter and shot him. And even when they did the right thing, they did the absolute best thing that they could have done in that circumstance. 6 people, which included 3 children, 9 years old, 6 people died. Now, cops did the right thing. It's time for the legislators to do the right thing. When we talk about gun control, that's what we are talking about. We're talking about reducing the number of possible mass shootings by putting some kind of safety mechanism in the process. Actual gun control is that. It's to make it a little bit more difficult to own a gun. Not saying you can't own a gun whatsoever, but make it more difficult so that people who are suicidal can't have access to weapons and then use them to kill themselves. If you care about mass shootings, that's one issue. But if you care about gun deaths, 54% of gun deaths are gun suicides. Men have an overwhelmingly higher rate of suicide because more often than not, they use guns. Bro, why are you saying the same point over and over again? Because unfortunately, Americans are very stupid. And I've been not only repeating the same talking points on this broadcast or this past week or this past month, I've been repeating these same talking points for the past decade. That's the saddest part. And it seems as though society has only devolved over the past decade that I've been saying the same exact shit.
We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at baseball games? Because we have armed guards outside of baseball games. That's why. How did we stop all the shootings at airports? We have armed guards outside of airports. How do we stop all the shootings at banks? We have armed guards outside of banks. How do we stop all the shootings at gun shows? Notice there's not a lot of mass shootings at gun shows. There's all these guns because everyone's armed.
Nothing he's saying is correct. Like, there have been shootings in pretty much every single place that he just mentioned. What the fuck is he saying? Almost all of those places are gun-free zones. And there have been shootings in all of those places regardless. Also, here's where he's not wrong. Some gun deaths will always happen if there are guns. That part is not incorrect. That part is correct. Except a comparable statistic to look at is Switzerland, a nation that has a higher rate of gun ownership than other nations surrounding it. Switzerland's rate of gun violence is literally nowhere near the United States of America. So incredibly fucking stupid.